Hello everybody, my name is Max Thorin. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we have two amazing, cool, passionate, extremely passionate people. And their common collaborator is relationships basically, and how to make the world a better place with great relationships. And Elin Ribjer, to our right, has created a pod called Så kan det gå. A little bit like translation would be life happened or life happens. And then we have Josefine Gillver, that is CMO at the company Relate, which is an app which matches people based on values. So why are you here together? Why have I put you in the same sofa and not in separate sofas? Could you explain that to me?
Well, so we met 6 months ago when Elin was about to launch her podcast, and she interviewed one of our co-founders, Philip Johnson-Jarl, and they saw that we had something in common.
Yeah, so Philip contacted me and we realized that our main goal was very similar, and he told me that they were actually thinking of themselves doing a relationship podcast. And since I hadn't launched yet, he asked if we could join forces together towards this goal, and so we did. And that's when we got to know each other, and Josefine entered my life and vice versa.
Yeah. And the whole thing started with us realizing the same challenge or problem in society, that a lot of people talk about how to build their career or how to grow as individuals, but not so many people talk about how we can build healthy relationships. And that's a super important thing in life, and if we don't know where to find that knowledge, it's even harder to do. So what we are doing together is actually creating a platform where people can seek inspiration and knowledge about relationships.
Yeah, so we want them to build relationships that actually lasts and that can maintain happy and still sustainable, and without losing the excitement or that part. Rather that we want people to continue to develop by having the relationships.
Awesome. What's like the big end goal of this? Like, are you planning to do this worldwide? How does it look? Is it 10,000 people joining together, or how? Let your imagination go wild here.
Well, of course, we're hoping for a big movement, a global movement. We have a challenge globally today that more and more people get have this feeling that they are lonely. At the same time, we are more and more connected on a digital level, but we are losing the interaction in real life. And I think this is something that we need to work on a global level to create a society that we are aiming and wishing for.
And the science suggests also that even though we have connection digitally, we are human beings and we're animals basically, and we are used to having our tribe, and we need the community to feel good, and we need to touch each other to release oxytocin and all of those things. So we can't really replace the human connection in the real interaction with the digital platforms. So as Josefine says, we're of course hoping for a global moment, and that moment we're starting here in Stockholm and in Sweden.
Amazing. So you've been doing this for a while now, and what's like the biggest, most important revelations, secrets that you discovered, maybe in the interview or the feedback from the app, or that really was like, wow, okay, this needs to come out, or this really needs to be, we need to put a spotlight on this because it's too valuable for people to not know, basically.
Yeah, I think something that come to my attention is how time is important. Everyone today are super busy, and I don't know what we're doing, but a lot of stuff, and we don't have enough time to build the relationships or the time that we need to build relationships. So I think that's one part that I've been realizing since I started to work with this. And one of Elin's podcast episodes was about how to strengthen relationships. And this expert said that you need 50 hours together with someone to go from just a shallow friendship to a friendship. And then you need 200 hours to go from friendship to deep connection and deep friendship. And it's the same thing if you're seeking for a romantic relationship. You need that time to build a healthy and long-lasting relationship, and that's also what we're missing. And we're living in an era where dating is super shallow, and you just quickly pass through a lot of people, and you only give them a few seconds before you decide whether you should or not meet in real life. And then you maybe go to 1 or maybe 2 dates before you decide whether this person is someone I want to continue to build on. And that's not enough. If we want to build healthy, long-lasting relationships, we need those 200 hours.
And I also think it's important to highlight that we have this kind of imagined relationship where we think that it should be this like instant spark and everything should just connect us right away. But as Josefine says, we need those hours, and we need to get to know people for real, and we need to see who's behind all of this. And I know another of my guests, Linnea Molander, she said she's a dating coach, and she said that something that people don't think about when they're in a date is that they're 50% of the date. Like, so if you ask someone like, was there a spark there? Like, was it like a flirty vibe? And it's like, no. And then it's like, okay, but were you flirting? No. Oh, okay, but you were 50% of the date. So then, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So we need to like really both like out ourselves and open up and show us vulnerable, even though that can be one of the hardest parts. But it's only when we're vulnerable when we can connect with others on a deeper level. And if we just go around asking the shallow questions, then the relationship will stay shallow as well.
And this is what Relate are working with. So we have this method that we call relating, so Relate is basically an app where you start by reflecting on your own personal values. And when you have those, when you have mapped your own personal values, we match you with people who share your values. And we also frame the whole experience so that you have, so you easily can start to talk about what's important for you in life based on values. And when we do that, if it's online in the app or if it's at our events, in just 10 minutes, when you meet a stranger and you connect based on values, there's a magic thing happen, because you skip all these shallow questions that Elin mentioned, like how many siblings do you have, or what do you do for work, and those kind of things that we just hear ourselves repeat and repeat on every date we ever been to. Instead, you go deep and you talk about something that really matters for you, and you see the sparkle in the other person's eyes when they talk about something that they really care about. And that's what Relate is about, and what relating is about.
Yeah, and that's not only something that we really need for our romantic relationships to be a long-lasting one, but it's also something that we really need in our friendships and in our families and all of those things. And we need to ask ourselves those questions too, and be that friend to us as well. So like, one of the main things that science suggests is like the most important thing for us to be happy, like really happy, is close relationships and intimate relationships where we can be vulnerable and all of those things. And it doesn't have to be money, but we need those relationships where we feel really secure and trusted and those things. And to get there, we need to get down to those core things. And then Relate is a great way of really mapping up what's important for you. Or you can just like ask yourself questions like, okay, so in the moments that I've been the happiest, what's been the values that's been there? Or in the moments where I've felt that something is missing, what is it that's missing? And to really map that up for yourself, because when you're aware of what you're looking for and what you need in your life, then you can start to see that in others as well, and see like whom really matches your values, basically.
And this goes back to what I said before about time, because if you meet someone or if you have a friend that you don't share values with and you don't have common interests with, the time will be super limited that you will have together. And both of you will probably have work or studies, and you have to sleep sometime as well. And then if you have different interests and hobbies, that time will also be spent apart. So it all goes back to making it easier to build a relationship. It also needs those common areas where you can meet and connect.
Yeah.
So if people feel like you're totally right and I feel there are some things in my relationship that I want to change, what could be some first step they could take with their boy or girlfriend or, I don't know, family or whatever it is right now?
One thing that I found very interesting doing with my partner is checking your love language. And I know that's something that you've been talking about in one of the episodes. So you can simply go online, 5lovelanguages.com, and answer a quiz, quick fix. And then you will see what preferences you have in the way you want to give and receive love. And if you learn to speak your partner's love language, you will also increase the feeling of love in your relationship.
Yeah, because it's a little bit like speaking different languages. If I were to speak Hebrew to you, you wouldn't understand a thing. But if both of us knows a little bit Hebrew, then we can understand each other, right? And it's the same with the love languages. So depending on our upbringing, we will show love in different ways, and we will also, usually we show love in the way that we want to receive love. And there's this word thing in Sweden when you say that you should treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. But really it's about treating others the way that other wants to be treated. So you need to like step out of yourself and see what does other people need. And that can be really hard. And I mean, this thing about just understanding what someone else needs, it's a really great idea, but it's really, really hard. So therefore it's much better if we just communicate, and if, say that we were in a relationship, Max, then I could ask you and be like, oh, but so if I want to show you my love, like what makes you feel appreciated and what makes you feel loved, then maybe it's the 5 different languages. That's about, it can either be that you want words, you want like compliments and things like that. You want someone,
affirmation.
Exactly. And or it can be that you want services. Like, I really value that you bring me a cup of tea in the morning, or that you clean at home, or that you make the bed before going, or that you make sure that it's always milk when I come home, or whatever. That's services. And it can also be about
Quality time.
Exactly.
So the time we spend together. Some people value that higher than gifts, which is the 4th love language, receiving and giving gifts. And then the last one
is like human connection and like touching each other. And so if you understand how to show your partner love in the best way, then of course that person will feel a lot more appreciated and a lot more loved. And it goes the same way to you. Like, if your partner can show you love in the way you need it to be, then you will see really a spark.
I have a very funny story here. So I talked to one of my friends, they're a couple, and we spoke about love languages, and they have never heard about this concept before. And I asked them if they knew their love languages, and they didn't. So I told them about these 5 different languages, and they started to laugh. And then they told me the story that when they just met, when they started to date, the guy, he always came with breakfast in the morning. Every morning he made breakfast in bed. And of course she thought that this was very cute, and you know, they had the breakfast there. But after a couple of weeks dating, or maybe even months, she just told him that, hey, you know what, I would appreciate it if you just stay in bed and cuddle and hug and kiss me like in the morning, instead of running out making breakfast. And then they realized that none of them actually liked eating breakfast, but they had just done it for weeks. Because they thought that, oh, he's so nice making me breakfast, I don't really want it, but hey, he's making it, so that's cute. And he was like, I go up a little bit early to make her breakfast because I really want to. So for them, it was very clear that active service was his way of showing, giving love, and that was not really her thing. So yeah, they needed to come to that conclusion to get to know each other better.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because what happens otherwise is that you will always have the feeling of giving but not receiving. And like, oh, but I'm doing everything in this relationship, you know. A lot of fights and is due to like a miscommunication and a lack of understanding from the other.
You don't appreciate it. I make breakfast for you every morning, and she's like, yeah, but I don't want you but fucking breakfast.
Exactly. And then it's much better to just like no. And then sure, it's a hard thing too, and some can feel like, oh, but should I really show love in a way that's not the way I show love? Then I'm becoming someone that I'm not. No, you're just adapting to a person that you love. And that's the entire thing about a relationship. You have to compromise, you have to learn from each other, and you have to grow together. So you really have to be able to step out of your own ways if you're going to have a relationship that lasts with someone.
And you were into a second thing, which is about needs. And most people, they don't reflect on their own needs. And how can someone else know you need if you don't know you need? So some things that we do in my relationship is to actually ask, so what do you need right now? Is there something I can do for you? So if I'm having a bad day, my boyfriend actually asks me like, hey, is there something I can do? Most of the time I tell him, no, I'm sorry, this is my shit to handle. But sometimes, yeah, please, some massage would be nice, you know.
Yeah.
So just in your relationship, learn to both ask the question, like, what do you need? But also learn how to say, I need this right now. Because if you're better in both communicating your own needs and also asking for your partner's needs, it will help.
Yeah. Because no one can be a mind reader, even if they really, really want to.
Yeah. Sometimes I do believe that, but it's always wrong.
And something else I think also is important to think about, and just a really quick one that I have brought with me a lot, is that Katarina Blom told me in the first episode that love is a feeling just like everything else. So we have this thing about like after 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, be like, oh, but I don't feel the love. But love is just a feeling, and it comes and goes, just like you feel happy or you feel sad. That's a feeling too. And to stay in love, then you have to nurture that love, and you have to continue to see each other and continue to be there in the relationship and engage. And that's usually when we're in love, it's because we're so there. We're like, oh, what can I do to make this person smile, and I want to be with you all the time, and I will like make you dinner or whatever.
And I'm so curious about everything that you do.
Yeah, I want to know everything about you, and then we stop asking the questions. And research also shows that every 6 months we're becoming a different person. So we have to stay curious in each other and to continue to ask, like, oh, what movie is it that influenced you the most right now? What series do you love? Why? Like, how are you right now? How's work? Why? Oh, tell me. Like, you need to stay curious, and it's one of the most common mistakes that we do, that we imagine that after some time we just know each other, like, and then we stop being curious. And that it's an easy thing to do.
And going back to dating, when you start to date someone, the funny thing is that how the dating industry looks like right now is that you have endless of choices. You can date whenever and whomever you want. It's just, you know, your phone is the gateway to endless of choices. But that also leads to paradox of choice. And that's a thing that makes you, not only it makes it hard for you to actually choose something, because you have so many different things to choose from, but also the study shows that when you take a decision in this era of endless choices, you're actually more likely to feel disappointed about what you actually chose. So going back to dating, if you start to date someone and you decide, okay, I'm gonna delete all the apps and I'm gonna focus on this specific person, and then suddenly this love feeling goes away one day, or one day it doesn't feel as strong as you did the day before, you start to question yourself, did I really choose the right one? Was this really my perfect fit? And then you think that, oh, maybe the grass is greener on the other side. But here's the thing, that the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is always greener where you put the water. So if you want to make sure that your relationship or the one that you're in is the most green, you also have to bring your water. And that's something that most people forget about.
And then the lawn will dry up.
Yep.
Yes, so to you, Elin, but still both of you, of course. Can you briefly tell us about the people you interviewed? Not everyone, but a couple of key points or big things from some of the speakers from your pod.
Of course, I've had the privilege to meet a lot of really, really interesting profiles. That's really the key thing with the podcast, is that I interview someone that's an expert in their area, so that we can really like learn how to have healthy relationships if we're doing it right. So one example is that I've had, we mentioned her before, but a dating coach called Linnea Molander. And she talks a lot about the fact that dating starts with yourself. And it's this that we talked about, that you're 50% of the date, and you really need to know your own values and what you want and need in order to be able to meet someone. And I've also had a fantastic girl called Marika Smith. She's been in 2 episodes, and in one of them we talked about cheating, which is something that's very taboo in our society today. But we talked a lot about what is the core to cheating. Like, why do people cheat? Because people usually still love each other, but they still cheat. And that's like the code that we can't break. And it's also, if you are a person that has cheated, then you're like black marked. Then like all the friends or family will just freeze you out, and you're like this super bad person. But what really happens usually when we cheat, it's basically that we were talking a little bit about it earlier, but in the beginning of a relationship, we all the time mirror each other. We are there, we're curious, and we're eager to learn about each other. But after some time, maybe kids get along, or we have work life, both of us, and we have separate lives, and we start to forget that, and we miss each other, and we will start to have parallel lives. And we will no longer mirror each other. So I will no longer see Josefine for the sides that I saw in the beginning. And I will not appreciate those sides. I will take them for granted, usually. And instead, maybe I will start mirroring a different side of Josefine, a side that she doesn't appreciate. So maybe I will mirror the side that, oh, you will always put your socks here, or you'll do this, or blah blah blah. And instead of mirroring the person that I fell in love with, I will mirror a person that will cause her anxiety. And then she meets someone at work, and they mirror that person that sees her in the light that she sees her, and the light that makes her feel like love herself, you know. And then it's really easy to fall into that cave of cheating, because all we ever want to do is, it's not so much about not loving the person we have at home, but it can be about, we just need to love ourselves a little bit, you know. So we need to look at cheating in a different perspective, and that we talk about in that episode. And I really recommend it to everyone. I've always been very against cheating, and I'm not saying I'm pro, but I can say I understand it in a different light, and I think that is very important. Mm-hmm. In the other episode with Marika Smith, we talk about how to make the spark last in a long-lasting relationship, and that I also think is a really super good episode for someone who's in a relationship. And there we talk a lot about, it really spins on to the issue of why you're cheating, but how do you then continue to see each other? And there the key was really that it's super important to never tell your partner that, oh, but you're not the one that goes to squash, or you're not this person, or you're not that person, and put them in a box, because we're constantly becoming other people, and we need to learn new things to keep things excitement in our lives. So therefore, to keep the spark, then we need to keep develop as persons. We need to try new things, we need to go to different places, we need to meet new friends, because then we can bring new energy into the relationship, and we can mirror each other in different ways again. Oh, I've learned this thing, and it's about blah blah blah, and then you can be curious in me once again. So we need to always constantly develop as separate people, but that has a loving relationship and is curious towards the other.
Another thing that Linnea Molander said is that dating, that you always ask your friends about dating advice, and that you should never do that. And I think this also goes back to what Marika Smith said, because they talked about how friends, if you are the one that your partner is cheating on you, everyone around you expect you to break up with this person.
Yeah.
But the reality is maybe many different layers, and it's not black and white, and we need to stop telling our friends what to do, and we need to stop giving those advice that maybe not is the right thing for this specific situation. So yeah.
Yeah, and Marika also suggests that sometimes we're actually leaving relationships that we actually should be in, but we haven't watered them, so they're not flourishing. But we're also staying in relationships that we should leave. And a common misperception is that as long as someone says they're in a relation, it's oh, good for you, that's so nice. It doesn't have to be nice, it can be a hell, but we're not allowed to talk about that. So we need to stop assuming that a relationship means that it's a fantastic life. And that if you're single, then it's oh, you'll meet someone, it's okay.
Don't worry, I have a friend for you.
Yeah, and we want to set them up. But maybe that person is super happy as a single person. Or maybe that person wants to live in a polyamorous relationship. We need to just let people be and really ask, oh, are you happy in that state? Are you happy as a single, or are you loving life as in a partnership or whatever?
And a little bit on this topic, I think sometimes we just need to stop asking us those questions. We live in a time where we always reflect on how we are, how do you feel, how are you, and we also have a lot of very high number of people who doesn't feel good about themselves and that aren't happy with their life, and maybe all those questions and all those reflections is a part of that problem. Just
over analyzing it. Yes. Maybe. Yeah.
Exactly.
Instead of really just getting down to the core. But so those are a few of the guests that I've had.
Yeah.
I've also had, we've talked about the 5 languages, which is one episode. I've also
Friendship.
had, Daniel Ek was there and talked about friendships and how we can make our friendships grow and evolve.
And one very interesting episode was with your friend who broke up with a parent.
Yeah.
So it's also about those family relationships that you are expected to just have a lifelong relationship with, but sometimes also those need to be broken
Yeah.
for you to be happy.
Exactly. And I've also had a guest called Lena Modin, which talks about a very sensitive topic, but a very important topic about sexually using a family member, which is something that is very common. It's 1 to 2 people per class, so we all know someone who's been there and who's been used, and we need to start talking about that so that those people can come out and get the information that it's not okay and that your own body is your own body. So that's a really beautiful episode, I would say, and I hope that it will reach a lot of people.
So what's common with all the guests in Elin's podcast is that everyone is experts in their own area, connecting to relationships with all kind of different relationships.
Yeah.
And that's also what makes it so good, because every week, every Thursday, you will listen and learn something new. From someone new with a new perspective or dimension to it.
So the idea is for us to learn how to have healthy relationships, but also to raise awareness of how unhealthy relationships look like, so we can learn to pinpoint what we want and what we don't want.
Thank you very much for those really good answers. And to you, Josefine, of course, when you develop an app like that, you must take in the feedback, continue to develop it. How is that process, and what's the feedback and maybe ups and downs along the journey that you taken with you?
So the first version of the Relate app came out in January 2019. So we getting close to 1 year now, and that was just so before that we didn't have the app, but we have tried the method without the app, trying to match people based on values. And we did that on one of our events 1.5 years ago, and there was actually a couple meeting. They met at that event, and today they are engaged. So that was a good proof of concept. So congratulations to Sylvia and Johannes. But then since then we have continued, of course, to update and to always listen and asking for feedback from our users, and that's the most important thing in our journey, to develop something that the users actually want to use. And so what we did, we saw a problem, we saw a challenge, and we saw a lack on the market, that the dating apps and the relationship platforms that were out there weren't really helping us to connect on a deep level. It was just these fast food dating services that we didn't really like ourselves. So we started to develop an app where you start by reflecting on your own values, and then you get matched by it. And we only had one profile picture in the first version of the app. And of course, attraction is a super important part in a relationship. So based on the comments and feedback from the users, we now have more possibilities to add pictures. But we want to stay strict to the thing that it shouldn't be the shallowness that other services are providing. So when we ask people to update photos, we ask them to share pictures that show something from their life. So share a moment from your life by using pictures. So today we have that. And we also, so we have we give you 5 matches per day. And most of our users, they come from a behavior using other apps where they have endless of choices. But we don't want to be that option, because we know how that leads to paradox of choice, and how that doesn't help us to actually see the person behind the profile picture. So we have, even though people ask for more matches per day, we have stayed strict to limit those numbers, because we strongly believe that this is something that will help people to reach their end goal, which is finding a long-lasting relationship. So today you get 5 matches per day, and we want you to pay attention, and of course there is pictures, but we want you to go deeper. So we have also added questions prompts that will help you to start chat and having a dialogue based on something deeper than just the shallow talk that you normally start with. That's also based on the feedback that we have got from the users. Another thing that are super important in our concept is that we also have events. So every year, actually during the spring we had events every other week, and now it's at least once per month, where we offering singles to meet and match real life at our events.
Here in Stockholm.
Yeah, here in Stockholm so far, yes. So this Friday, for example, this Friday we have this Halloween party. So we are also collecting feedback to help people meet in real life, and we started to do smaller events with like 30, 40 people, and then we have been trying to do bigger events with up to 100 people, and now based on the feedback we got from our users, we will now have both ends. So we both have those big events where hundreds of singles can meet and mingle, but we'll also have these more intimate, more personal events where people actually spend more time talking to each other and meet in a more more conscious way. Yeah.
Really cool, really cool. Thank you. So Elin, where's the places you can find it?
You can find it via Spotify or iTunes or Podcaster. You can also find it via Acast or Player FM, and it's also available on something called Stitcher. So a little bit here and there.
But then we have Instagram and Facebook, of course. Relate on Values for finding a relate, and we update daily tips and inspirations on how to build long-lasting relationships. And the same with the podcast, Så kan det gå podden,
on Instagram. And we also have a community together in between us that we call the Relationship Club, but in Swedish, so Relationsklubben. And there we are trying to get people to talk about relationships and to learn from each other in an interactive way. So that's on Facebook, and we also meet regularly here in Stockholm to get that personal connection.
Yeah, is that on Wednesdays? Or?
On Wednesdays for now.
For now it's on Wednesdays.
The best way to keep updated is by following us on Instagram or Facebook.
Yes.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock for now.
Yeah.
But we want to do an extra shout out. If anyone in a relationship or in Stockholm on the 13th of November, we are gathering some experts, sex inspirator, value expert, and happiness researcher, and all of them will help us to boost our relationships and help relationships that are already existing to grow. So on the 13th of November in Stockholm.
Yes.
Awesome.
So if you're interested in that, then you can just search for Boost Your Relationship on Facebook.
Nice. And is it something that I should have asked? Me not being an expert, maybe I missed a question. Please enlighten me.
No, but I think you covered it really well. I mean, if they're interested in just deepening their relationships, or if you as a viewer are, then I would absolutely recommend you to listen to the podcasts, and because it's amazing guests that really share their stories. and also use the app and really get down to what the values are in your life. So I think we've covered it. What do you say, Josefine?
Yeah, I agree. We have mentioned the love languages. We have mentioned how important it is to identify your own needs and to share those needs with your family and friends and people close to you. We have talked about the paradox of choice and how the many choices that we have in life also makes it harder to make a decision, but also to stay happy with the decision that we take. Yeah, I think we have covered most of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, then I just want to say thank you. And to the viewers out there, as always, you know what I'm going to say. Wait for it. Stay blessed and always be your best. Max Thorin out.
September we met, I could tell by your smile. You hadn't been with a good girl like me in a while. Yeah, you were impressed, couldn't leave me alone. Text me every time that you pick up the phone. And I had control in the driver's seat, but my hands are slipping off the wheel. Now the tables have turned, now I'm up all night. I'm picturing you, acting like a fool. I'm on the other side, you're like a full moon, and I'm up all night, howling at you. Tables have turned, tables have turned, tables have turned.
Ja, men de ser inte bra det där, det gör ingenting. Ni får ju sätta dem lite snabbt om det också. Om ni vill finnas bättre.
I used to be chill, now I can't catch my breath. When you say my name, I feel tight in my chest. Can't handle the space, I need you here by my side. You make me sweat in the coldest of nights, yeah. I had control in the driver's seat, but my hands are slipping off the wheel. Now the tables have turned, now I'm up all night. I'm picturing you, acting like a fool. I'm on the other side, you're like a full moon, and I'm up all night, howling at you. Tables have turned, tables have turned, tables have turned, tables have turned, feelings all turned upside down. I guess I'm the needy one now. Feelings all turned upside down. I guess I'm the needy one, needy. Now the tables have turned, now I'm up all night. I'm picturing you, acting like a fool. I'm on the other side, you're like a full moon, and I'm up all night, howling at you. Tables have turned.